this webinar, and we will post it to our website probably no later than Monday, and I'll send a note out to everybody that registered. So if you miss something the first time through and you're like, oh, you want to share it with your friends and family, I'll send you the link to it probably no later than Monday. So thank you again for registering. We really appreciate it. The second thing is that you will be able to ask questions, and the way that you'll do that is if you will just take your mouse or your cursor and you hover over, on some people's screen it's the top and some people's it's the bottom, but you'll see a little Q&A on a panel at the bottom, and that's all you have to do. You'll just text, you'll type your questions in, and I'll be monitoring that Q&A panel. And I'll probably not interrupt Amber like in her presentation, but we'll try to group some of those together. So, but don't worry, we will be able to probably answer all of them. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amber. She is a research analyst for the Chesapeake Biological Lab, which is part of the University of Maryland system, and we are thrilled that she's with us today. So Amber, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, Anne. Thank you so much. Very happy to be back with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm excited to talk to you all today about dolphins in the Chesapeake Bay. And I think we're going to start here with a couple poll questions. And I just wanted to get a general idea of who is in our audience today. So you'll see the question pop up on your screen here. And so the first question is going to be, how would you describe yourself? Are you a student, a teacher or professor, a nonprofit professional, local, state, federal, or policymaker, or just a curious citizen here to find out more about these amazing creatures? So just go ahead and click on one of those and submit your answer, and we'll give you about 45 seconds to do that, and we'll see how that turns out.
All right, looks like everybody who wants to participate has answered the question, so I'll share the results. All righty.
Great, awesome. Lots of curious citizens here today. I'm very glad to see that. A couple students, couple teachers and professors. Great, so hopefully this will quench your curiosity about these amazing creatures. I kept my talk on a little bit of the shorter side so that we should have plenty of time for questions at the end, because who doesn't want to talk about these guys? So I have one more question for you before we get started here. And I was just wondering how many of you have actually already seen a dolphin in the bay? So you're going to see that poll pop up on your screen here in just a second. So have you not had the privilege of seeing them yet? Have you seen them recently? Or perhaps you saw them a very long time ago, but you haven't seen them recently? All right, so results are in, and 53% of you said that you have not yet seen them. 27% said yes, you've seen them recently, and 20% said yes, but a very long time ago. I sadly fall into the no category. Most of my research, as you'll find out here, involves listening to dolphins and analyzing all of the wonderful data, but I have not yet had the privilege of seeing these amazing animals in the bay. So I'm very envious of all those of you that already have. So we'll go ahead and get started here. So I will be talking today about Dolphin Watch and the process of tracking dolphins within the bay. As Anne said, my name is Amber Fandel. I'm a research analyst at the Chesapeake Biological Lab, which is part of the University of Maryland system. We're part of the Center for Environmental Science. So let's see here. All right. So here are our wonderful subjects for the day. These are the bottlenose dolphin. So you'll see here that they get their name from their bottle-like nose. And these are marine mammals, which means that they are required to breathe air, which is super handy for us because that means that they have to come up to the surface where we can see them. Now, these are not small creatures, which is also beneficial to us because we like to see them. They weigh between 300 and 1,400 pounds, and they can be between 6 and 12 feet long. So they are not small animals. They might look small when they're far away, but when you see them up close, you'll realize just how big they really are. And these bottlenose dolphins can live up to 50 years. They are what we call generalist feeders, which means they feed on a whole variety of different things, including fish, squid, and pretty much just whatever they can get their hands on. They are commonly found in groups, which we call pods, and they can be often seen leaping and bow riding on boats. So bow riding is when the boat's traveling through the water and the dolphins come and ride the wake, which is really fun and always really exciting. Now, I do have to put a little caveat here that bottlenose dolphins are protected under the Marine Mammal Protection Act, and we ask that you please do not feed or harass the dolphins at any time. It's actually a federal crime. So we just wanted to put that in there as a friendly reminder. We know it's always really exciting to see them, and you might want to get a little bit closer, but they are protected, and you do have to stay at least 50 yards away from them at all times. Now, if they come to your boat and they're bow riding, great, you just carry on as you were, or if you want to stop the engine, that's fine too, but you're not supposed to harass them in any way. Okay, back to the fun stuff. So this great photo was taken by Philip Younger. This is down by the Chesapeake Biological Lab, the Thomas Johnson Bridge that goes over the Patuxent Bay there, or I'm sorry, the Patuxent River. So dolphins are really incredible animals. They, like I said, come up to the surface to breathe air, and we can take photos of their dorsal fins, which is this fin on their back right here. And you can see in this photo that each of these fins look very different. And these fins are a little bit like a fingerprint. Now, they do change a little bit over time, but each of these fins is unique to a dolphin. So if we take photos of all of the dorsal fins for the animals, we can actually figure out who they are, which is really cool. However, that does require that we see them, which can be very challenging. And so we've taken advantage of some of the other things that they do, which include making a ton of noise. So they use their echolocation clicks like bats, and they use that to find their food. And they make these echolocation clicks pretty frequently to navigate and to find that food. So we have these great devices that can pick up on those clicks and let us know when dolphins are there. They also make lots of whistling sounds to communicate to each other. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I just wanted to let you all listen in on one of the recordings from the bottlenose dolphins. So this down here is called a spectrogram. This is a visualization of the sound. So you'll see these vertical lines are the echolocation clicks, and these squiggly lines down here, those are the whistles that they use to communicate within their pod. All right, so let's listen in. Okay, so some cool sounds going on there. I'm gonna play it one more time just so you can kind of listen to these echolocation clicks. It kind of sounds like a little bit of static because it's so high frequency. And obviously these whistles are a little bit more comfortable in our hearing range. these clicks up here, we often have to slow them down in order to hear them clearly because they're so high frequency. So let's
Hey,
listen one more time.
Amber, I don't
Uh-huh.
think folks are hearing it. I don't know if you want to put your microphone closer to, because it's just not coming through your computer, I don't think.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
let me try this one more
Okay.
time.
I heard that perfectly.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
worked well.
Okay, perfect. So I'm glad you all were able to hear that. Sorry about the first time. So you can hear that there's a lot of different sounds going on there, and this is great for both us and the dolphins. It allows us to track them even in poor weather, even at night. And it's great for them because in a habitat that might be very murky or muddy, it allows them to communicate over long distances. So we use that to our advantage, and we use it to detect dolphin clicks. Now, most of our research is based off of Ocean City, and we were testing one of our click detector devices right off the pier down at the Chesapeake Biological Lab. So you can see that right down here is Solomon's Island, our little pier that juts out. And we were testing our C-Pod just to make sure that it worked. And we took it back to the lab and analyzed the data just to see, make sure that everything was working correctly. And what we found was that it had actually detected dolphins in the bay. Now, this might not be news to some of you, but dolphins had not been super common in the bay, and we didn't know that they were coming right by the pier there. So obviously we got very excited. These are dolphins right in our own backyard. So we started monitoring, and we kept one of these hydrophones, which is an underwater listening device, right off of our pier there at Chesapeake Biological Lab. And we also put one in the Potomac River. We have a wonderful waterman down that works down there, and he has had one off of his pound net, which was amazing. It's giving us a lot of insight into the acoustic behavior of dolphins in that area. So we've been doing this since 2015, and the Chesapeake Bay is huge, right? It's an enormous body of water, and it was impossible for us to acoustically monitor the whole bay. So we started thinking, what could we do? How could we get information about the whole bay? Now, our lab is pretty small. So we can't go out and look at dolphins on the bay all the time, but you know who's out there often? All of you. So we got tons of watermen on the bay, tons of curious citizens, and we said, let's harness that power and use it to our advantage. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. So this is going back to our data from the Potomac River. So what I want you to focus on here, this is the detection hours per day along the y-axis here, and then we have dates along the x-axis here. So this is through time between May 16th and November 14th. And this is data for 2016, 17, 18, and 19. And what this is telling us is that we see that around this time here, late June, early July, we're actually seeing that almost every hour in the day, dolphins are present. So between 15 and 23 hours of the day, we are detecting dolphin clicks in the Potomac River, which is really, really exciting. This is far more than we expected to see. So we've continued our monitoring over time, and you'll see that there's a little bit of fluctuation through the years, but that this peak seems to hold pretty constant. And so we think that dolphins are coming into the bay during the summer months, and I wanted to get you guys' ideas, and if we could pull up that last survey question here. Why do you think that the dolphins might be coming into the bay? So you'll see the poll pop up on your screen here in just a minute.
It's coming, Amber.
Okay.
I know, I'm still here. There we go. Okay, here we go.
Okay, great. So if you want to just click on that poll there, why do you think dolphins visit the bay? Is it for the great social scene, a good place to find mates, the tasty eats, lots of delicious fish, just for a nice neighborhood to raise kids, for them to calve, or all of the above? Alrighty, poll results are in. It looks like lots of people, about 26% thought they're in the neighborhood for some tasty eats, and 67% said all of the above. And we really think that it's probably all of the above. So we wanted to look into this a little bit more. We wanted to look at what time of day are they here most often. And our two sites here, we have the Patuxent River down by the Chesapeake Biological Lab, and we see here that there's a peak around the early morning hours, around dawn or so, and then again in the late evening. And in the Potomac, we actually see that they are most common, or we get the most acoustic detections in the really late evening and early morning hours, but that there are far more here in the Potomac River. So this is the detection positive minutes, and that just means how many minutes in the day did we detect dolphins. So right here around noon and 4 p.m., those are our lowest times, but we still see that there are a lot of dolphins present during those times. So then our question was, are they passing by the area, or are they sticking around to do some kind of fun activity in the area? And what we found is that at the CBL Pier, in the Patuxent River, so up here in the graph, you're going to see the frequency of occurrence. This is just how many detections along the y-axis here. And then, oh, sorry, this is just the count and the detection positive minutes along here. So were they detected usually staying in the area for about an hour, or are they just in the area for a couple minutes? And what we found is that in the Patuxent River, the red here, they were most frequently detected at 5 minutes or less. So they're really not staying in the area for very long. And we think that they're just transiting up the river and into the bay. So they're really just passing by. But in the Potomac River, while we still saw a lot of short encounters, we saw far more of the longer encounters here, sometimes staying in the area up to about an hour. So that gives some evidence that perhaps they're coming into this area to socialize, maybe to feed, maybe to calve, but they're sticking around for a little while here. And that very often they're staying in the area up to about 25 minutes. That's pretty common for them at the Potomac River. So we have all of this great information, and we wanted to learn a little bit more about the individual dolphins that are coming into the area. We were able to say, okay, we know that they're here, we know when they're here, let's find out who is here, okay? So what we started looking at is something really cool called a dolphin signature whistle. And these signature whistles are unique whistles to each individual dolphin. So this is like a dolphin name. And luckily, they repeat this name over and over and over again. They're always saying their name to their friends. Every time they meet new dolphins in the wild, they kind of introduce themselves. Maybe the other dolphin will repeat the name back to them. But this is really useful information because it allows us to identify individual dolphins in the area. So that's great because then we can know who is there, and we can also find out how many dolphins are there. And these signature whistles are also used to maintain group cohesion. So say your friend wanders off and the pod is going to keep going up the river and you don't want them to get lost, you can just call their name to keep them with the group. So you can see here, these are some diagrams of dolphin whistles. And you can see this one here, very interesting dolphin whistle. And this one here looks completely different, right? So when these dolphins meet in the wild, they would each say their name to each other, and they say them 3 times in a row so that they make sure that the other dolphin understands them. And then sometimes, like I said, they'll repeat them back and forth to one another. So this is what it looks like when those signature whistles are repeated. We call it a bout. So this is a signature whistle in a bout. Oops, sorry. And it's the same sound repeated 3 times. And I'll play that for you here. You can listen to that. Okay, so you just learned a dolphin name. We'll listen to it one more time. You also might hear some clanging in the back. We think that's probably a boat propeller or something in the back there while we were recording. So we're using some of that acoustic data to find out who is in the area. And this is how we're doing it. We have these passive acoustic recorders, the big device over here on the left-hand side. We attach it to some rope and a buoy, and this is all batteries actually in this big compartment. And this is what we're focusing on right here. This is the hydrophone, the underwater listening device. And that records all the sound in the area and allows us to find those dolphin whistles. So once we have the recordings, we take them back to the lab and we look at them. This is that spectrogram again, the visualization of the sound. And you can see here that we have that signature whistle repeated a couple different times. So we select each of these whistles here, and we use some a neural network, some computer learning software to create little squiggly lines, little contours of these whistles. And we run it through this program that takes a look and sees if we find any matches between whistles. So if we find that this whistle, let's say that that whistle was seen on July 4th in 2018. Maybe we see this whistle again in October of the same year. Maybe we see it in a different location, anything like that. And that will tell us that the dolphin is in a different place at a different time, which is great because it allows us to track them without having to tag them with a device. Now,
so Amber,
yeah.
I'm going to stop you for just a second. So there's a question specific to that, which is how far away can the passive recorder pick up the dolphins?
Yeah, that's a great question. It depends a lot on the environment that we're looking at. So in the bay, we think it's probably only about a kilometer away. If it's offshore in deeper water, then we can get a little bit further away, but we think it's about a kilometer in the bay.
And since I've already stopped you, let me just ask you the 2 others that are open in the Q&A.
Sure.
So is EDNA, E-D-N-A, a viable way of confirming the presence or absence of dolphins in the bay?
You know, we haven't looked into eDNA as of yet. I know that it's an emerging and exciting field, but it's not something that we've looked at for the bay just yet. So if someone is in that field and they want to reach out and you know, get something going on that would be awesome. But it's not something that we've investigated as of yet.
And I think this one you might have just answered, which is, do you know if they are the same dolphins that travel up and down the coast off of Ocean City and Rehoboth?
Yeah, that is a great question. And that is exactly what we're working on answering right now. So we have those 2 acoustic recorders in the Patuxent and in the Potomac, and we're using those signature whistles along with our recording devices and signature whistles offshore. And what we've seen is that there is at least some overlap in the population. So some of the dolphins that we see offshore Ocean City are coming into the bay. Now, we don't know, there are lots that we haven't identified yet, so they could be coming from a couple different populations. We're still working to understand that right now.
Okay, I'm sorry. We got a lot of questions coming in. So,
Okay.
but I think you're doing okay for time. So, do you know how a dolphin chooses its signature whistle? That's the question.
Yeah, so we have a little bit of an idea about how a dolphin gets its signature whistle. Largely, they are passed down from the mother. So they're formed within the first year of the dolphin's life. The mother will kind of give the calf a name, and the calf might change it a little bit and develop it over the next year, and then it stays pretty constant throughout their life.
That was about the coolest thing I've ever heard in my life. Okay, but that's so neat, right? So are there recorders in other locations in the bay? So you mentioned 2. Are there any that are anywhere else that any other organization is working on?
So yes, we also have a recorder. You'll see it in a slide or 2 here. We are working with, let me get his. So the Smithsonian Environmental Research Center, or SERC, they have a recorder at the mouth of the Road River. So we do have a recorder up there. Now, unfortunately, that site is very shallow. So we've had some difficulty with getting reliable recordings. If it's not deep enough, our recorders work pretty well, and we end up getting lots of bird sounds, people talking in the water, things like that. So we're still working on improving that site a little bit. And then we just this summer, I think back in March, we deployed a couple other devices at different spots in the bay to try to better understand which dolphins are going up deeper into the bay.
All right, so I'm going to let you go ahead, and then we'll come back to questions in a few minutes. So if you've typed one in the Q&A, we'll come back to you.
Great. Thanks for all those great questions. I'm excited to answer all of them as we go on here. So with these acoustic recordings and that software to try to match the whistles over time, I will emphasize that we have to manually go back and check them all as well. So it's a labor of love here. It takes a lot of time. And so, like I said, we've looked at these time series of detection. So we see that we see these same individuals popping up again and again in the bay. So we saw this whistle in July of 2018, and then we saw it again in August of 2018. So we know that for at least some of these dolphins, they're coming back into the bay repeatedly, or perhaps they're just staying in the bay for the whole summer. And we don't really understand that yet, but we are working to. And we're trying to determine if dolphins return to the same location year after year, or if they vary amongst seasons. So like I said, with the help of Dr. Matt Ogburn over at the Smithsonian Environmental Research Center, they put one of these acoustic recording devices out in the Road River, and it recorded in 2018 from May to September, and it was 125 days and just about 2,500 hours of recording. And because we had so much background noise, we had to look at each individual hour of recording to determine if dolphins were there. And we determined that there were a total of 81 signature whistles identified over that period. And we were able to determine that this was, we saw 81 different signature whistles. So 81 different dolphins coming into that area is what that means. Well, we saw some dolphins repeat over time, but at least throughout that period, 81 dolphins visited the area. So, like I said, the acoustic recording that we have is amazing. We can use it for a lot of different things, but we have a lot of trouble covering the whole bay. These acoustic recording devices are a little bit expensive, takes a lot of time to analyze the data. So we said, let's go ahead and use our resources in the bay. And we created the Chesapeake Dolphin Watch app. It started as an online app, and now you can get it on your phone, which we're very excited about. So this Chesapeake Dolphin Watch app is a great tool for anyone that's on the bay to figure out where dolphins are and to also let us know where they are. So since we launched in June of 2017, we have had almost 3,800 users log into and create an account on the app, and they have reported more than 1,000 dolphin sightings. So that's been really, really great for us. It's helped us understand where dolphins are traveling in the bay, and this will help advise also where we put those acoustic recorders to try to figure out which dolphins are in the bay. So this is the website here. You can visit chesapeakedolphinwatch.org. There's a download there. This is what the app looks like. So if you log in, you'll see that you can go to the map up here, and each of these dolphins is a dolphin that was sighted within the bay. You can change the time scale on that, so you can see all the sightings within the last year, the last month, the last week, so you can find out where people are seeing dolphins right now. But what this really relies on is all of you. So like I said, we're not out there on the water. I've never seen a dolphin in the Chesapeake Bay, but many of you have. So you can use this app to report your sightings and let us know where you are seeing dolphins. So you can see here, we're seeing them all the way up by the Bay Bridge. We're seeing them up in the tributaries of the rivers here and all the way down to the mouth of the bay. So you can report your sightings on the app. It's available in the Google Play and the Apple Store. And the continuation of this project is really reliant on all of you helping us out. So in the last year or so, we've put in some features and some upgrades to make it a little bit more user-friendly and a little bit more helpful for us as well. So now your individual sightings will show up as a pink dolphin, which I always think is super fun. You can include a description of your sighting. So you'll see over here, this is what the reporting page looked like. You can include a description here of what you saw. You can upload photos and videos down here, which is great. That helps us make sure that you really did see dolphins and not just a cow nose ray sticking the end of its fins up in the water. And also we love to see all the cool videos and things that you all submit. And your sightings with a confirmed photo will have a little camera icon, and they can actually be viewed within the app. So now you have access to some of the great photos that your fellow Dolphin Watch users have taken. And in 2019, we installed a microphone symbol. And so now you can even listen to some of the recorded dolphin calls from different areas, which is really cool. So the Chesapeake Dolphin Watch app, the first step when you download it is to log in with your created password. You can use a Facebook or Google account to log in too. And this information is important because, like I said, we need to make sure that you really did see a dolphin in the area. Make sure that you didn't just press a button by accident or reach out to you after you report something to make sure you can give us a description or ideally a photo just to make sure that you did see a dolphin. We then review and take a look at the map. So there are viewing guidelines here. You can notify the authorities of any animal you see stranded, which is always very sad, but we have that resource here for you if you need it. You can see your sighting in the bay here, and let's say you were out on the water, you didn't have service, you returned home, and you wanted to let us know where you saw dolphins, you'll have the ability to click anywhere on the map and let us know where that was. And like I said, you can change the scale here so you can see how many dolphins we saw in 2017, 18, 19 in the last month, last 7 days, and today. Then you'll be able to report your sightings. Your sightings will all be listed here. So if you need to edit them, or if you want to see where they were in the map, you can do all of that. And like I said, we've had lots and lots and lots of dolphin sightings, which has been really exciting for us. So here are some of our favorite dolphin sightings in the bay. We have some great photographers out there. You can see that down here, Kim Chase Brown, she got a picture of a dolphin foraging, with knocking a little fish out of the water, doing a little spy hop up here, bow riding with Carolyn Wilson. Lots of really exciting behavior going on. So I'll play a couple videos for you now, just so we can check out these awesome animals. This one's from Ken Vincent on his paddleboard, and there's actually a dolphin calf in this one, so see if you can find it. Do you guys see it? It's right over here. Take a look again. See a little baby in the back? Very cool. Right. Another video here by Sharon Sylvia in the Great Wicomico River, July 1st of 2018. So this is around that time that we see the peak in dolphin presence in the area. So you can see she's just sitting there in her paddleboard, just hanging out, and the dolphins are so curious. They come over, and you might have heard just a couple seconds in that they're actually whistling, communicating back and forth, and she can even hear that above the water. So we'll listen just to get that whistle one more time. Did you hear it just there? Yeah, very cool. All right. This one's by Victor DeFrancis in the Potomac River, 29th of July, 2018. So just some dolphins frolicking out in the bay, hanging out together, doing some aerial behavior, putting on a show for him. This was some cool footage that was taken by Trevor Strand, the 26th of June, 2017. Whoopsies. And sorry, loading. And this was actually taken from a drone. So you'll see the dolphins are a little bit hard to see, but look for the splashing here. You'll see he's operating the drone from his boat right over here. So pretty cool stuff there. You see them playing around in the water, chasing each other. And then these are all the sightings from 2017 between June and December. This is just going to be a little video showing you how the sightings moved up and down the bay through those. The date is right over here. So you see, for the most part, the earlier parts of the year, we really see dolphins throughout the bay, all the way up to Annapolis, the Bay Bridge, that whole area. But as it gets a little bit later in the season, we kind of see them come down the bay, and they mostly exit through. They're really just coming into the area for the summer. When the water's nice and warm, presumably there's lots of fish. And recently we found out that some of the dolphins are actually calving in the bay. So that little poll that we took earlier, why do you think dolphins are coming into the bay? We really think it's all of those: good eats, good neighborhood, good place to meet mates, and good place to have calves as well. So in 2018, there's just a couple maps here. This is May 21st to, 21st of May to the 21st of June of 2018. They're all spread through the bay here. And you'll see we've zoomed in right here around the Bay Bridge. And now you can click on these little areas and you can see the photos that were taken during that sighting, which is very cool. You can see how many dolphins there were, what time of day, and where that occurred. So in 2018, just to give you an idea of how many dolphins were sighted, this is their spread throughout the bay, all of 2018. We also have a couple reportings here offshore. We'll always take those. We always like to know where dolphins are, but our focus is primarily within the bay. So you can see they're going up the rivers here. We don't see them all the way up in the tributaries or anything like that, but kind of within this general area of the main stem. So if you want to learn more about our research, here, you can always visit umces.edu/dolphinwatch. I will say that, like I said, this data analysis takes quite a long time, and there's a lot that we still don't know about these animals. So we are currently raising money to buy another dolphin listening device to track these individual dolphins. And if you want to contribute to that project at all, the option is there for you on the website. We wanted to acknowledge all the people that have worked on this. Also, the Chesapeake Dolphin Watch app was funded by the Chesapeake Bay Trust, the track software, and the Chesapeake Biological Lab. Without them, we would not have been able to develop the app and make it available to all of you. So it's really thanks to them that we have all of this great information. We also wanted to thank South Wings. They're a great organization that do contract private pilots to help us do flyovers of the Chesapeake Bay. We were not successful in seeing any dolphins, but we did try aerial surveys for a little while. And it was thanks to them that we had that opportunity. So I wanted to give a shout out to them. And thank you all very much for coming today. I know we have some questions in the chat there. So Anne, if you want to help me out with that, I'm happy to answer all those for you.
Yeah, there's so many, they really stacked up. Okay, so Chuck Gardner asked, is there only one type of bottlenose dolphin? Coloration seems to vary in the ones that he's observed.
That's a great question. We think that there is only one type of bottlenose dolphin that we would see in this area. There is definitely a lot of variation in color, in size, and in those dorsal fins. Some of them might have skin lesions or scrapes that you can see on their face, some like that. But there is only one species in the area. There is the off chance that you could find a harbor porpoise or something like that, but they're extremely rare in the bay. And if you do see them, it's probably not a good sign. So if you've seen the dolphins, they are all of one species. Yes, they might be from different populations, which could also contribute to their different colorations.
Excellent. And I think you might have already answered Joel's question, but where in the upper bay would he be most likely to see them?
It's a good question. I don't know as of this moment. They're pretty popular around the Bay Bridge. We also have a lot of viewers there, so it's a bit biased. But I would encourage you to check out the app to see where they are right now. It's always good to check that if you're going to be out on the bay to see where they've been seen recently.
So this may be a question for the professor at Georgetown who's doing this work. So Terry asked, can we submit pictures of dolphins showing the dorsal fin to help track movements of individual dolphins? If so, to whom should we submit the pictures?
Yes, amazing. So thank you so much for that question. I'm sorry I skimmed over that. There is a professor at Georgetown that is working down in the Potomac River collecting photos of the dorsal fins to try to track them as well. So we are working on some stuff with her. If you want to send them to us, that's great. We are forwarding clear photos of dorsal fins to her as well so that she has that information. And we're going to work on matching the dorsal fins to the signature whistles, which we're very excited about. So you can feel free to send it to us at dolphinwatchcb@umcs.edu. Or if you want to reach out to her over at Georgetown, that's definitely an option as well.
And when I send the link to the webinar out, to the recording, I'll include Dr. Mann's email address in there as well.
Wonderful.
So do dolphins live and stay in the bay or return to the ocean periodically? There's actually two different questions that are very similar in terms of what their life cycle is.
So we don't fully understand that yet. We believe that they are just seasonal visitors to the bay. We don't see them very often during the winter months, so we think that they return to the Atlantic Ocean and travel either north to the area off Ocean City and maybe a little bit further north, or down toward North Carolina.
Okay, the next one says, would you say, in your opinion, that dolphins have the same level of emotional and social intelligence as humans? Is a similar level of individually observed across other members of its species? I'm not sure I understand the second half of that. The first part of that question, I think you can answer.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the second part either, but I'm happy to speak a little bit to the first part. We do know that they have very high mental and emotional understanding and capability. I'm not an expert in that field by any means, but we do know that there is a lot of social interaction, which takes a lot of mental capacity to be able to handle. And I can recommend some great books on that if you're more interested in that. Unfortunately, I'm not an expert on that, so I can't speak to it too much more than that.
Excellent. This is a great question. Is there a correlation of dolphins moving into the bay and long lining or other commercial fishing fleets working along or up and down the coast?
That is an excellent question. We do know that dolphins sometimes get entangled with that fishing gear, especially long lines. Luckily, they're pretty smart and they don't have the bad habit of eating off those long lines like some other marine mammals do. So we don't see a ton of interaction between the fishery and the dolphins, but it is always a concern and always something that we're keeping an eye out for. All of those fishermen, if they do catch a dolphin or anything like that, they always have to report it. So we have that way of monitoring that effect.
So Rob Jennings asked, have any been observed / heard in the James? And if so, how far upstream?
Sorry, say that one more time.
So Rob asked, how far have any been heard in the James? I think the answer is yes, and if so, how far upstream? If they've been observed up in the James River?
Yeah. So I know we definitely have sightings in the James River. We don't have any recordings there as of yet, but I know that we have had quite a few sightings there. So again, I would encourage you to go on and check out the app. There are so many tributaries and rivers within the bay. I don't know how many we've seen in each of them, but that information is available to you if you want to go take a peek.
These questions are all interesting. So I think you just answered this. So Dr. Campbell asked, are porpoises seen in the bay? And I think that you just answered the answer to that is yes, right?
They are very occasionally, and if we do see them, they're more common in the winter months where you probably wouldn't see a bottlenose dolphin. So it does occasionally happen, but we don't think that they are frequent visitors by any means.
Okay, Marina wants to know where and how do dolphins sleep?
It's a great question, I know. So there's some research ongoing with that. And some theories are that they are actually able to shut off half of their brain while they swim around a little bit. Usually they do this in groups. So we've seen this behavior in Hawaii, where they will stay together in a group during the daytime, and they're basically sleeping while they're passively swimming around in the group. Obviously, they still have to come up and surface for air, so they can't sleep completely, but they shut off half their brain to be able to get some rest.
Okay, I love this question. What makes a good spot for calving? What environmental actions could make the bay a better environment for dolphins?
A great question, yeah. So an area that is protected from predators is the biggest thing. If that area is also warm, has great access to fish, all of those are perks. But the biggest thing that the dolphins will be looking for is an area where their calf is going to be safe. So the bay provides a great refuge for that. And as we've seen the bay health increase, we've seen some increases in fish populations in the area. So the two of those together make it a pretty ideal calving ground. So continuing to improve the quality of the bay, we hope will continue the dolphins in their visitation of the area and hopefully increase in numbers as well.
So Alan asked, what is the minimum depth that dolphins are likely to be spotted?
So in some areas, not necessarily in the bay, but in some other areas, bottlenose dolphins have been known to do a really cool behavior where they push fish up onto the sand and actually kind of skim along the surface there, practically coming onto the beach in order to catch the fish. So the minimum depth is pretty much zero. Now, if you see a dolphin on a beach without water nearby, obviously that's a concern. But they can come into extremely shallow water, especially if they're using it as a hunting method.
Okay, is there any work being done to see what schools of fish/food they may be following or feeding upon?
Good question. And yes, we are starting to look into that now. So with all of these amazing dolphin sightings that we have, we've been looking at different characteristics of water in the bay. So to determine whether dolphins are more likely to be in areas when the water is warmer, when salinity is higher or lower, are they coming based on dissolved oxygen, all of those things. And we assume that those changes are largely in relation to their prey. Because dolphins are marine mammals, they're endothermic or warm-blooded, so they don't care too much about the water temperature. Obviously, like I said, if they're calving and it's a nice warm area, that's great, but they're not affected by the changes in the water temperature. So we think that by looking at that and by also looking at some of the information on different prey species in the bay, we can get a better understanding of what they're eating and then understand when and where they're going to be.
So two people asked the same question, which is, it seems that dolphins are largely on the western edges of the bay and the coast. Is there a reason for this? Are there more there, or is it more, or are they just more frequently sighted on the western side?
So yeah, that's something we're still trying to parse out, and we hope to get a better understanding of that using acoustic data. Right now, we don't know if it's just that there are more people in that area or if dolphins are more common. So unfortunately, just from the sighting data, we don't really know for sure, but hopefully the acoustic data will give us a better idea of that.
Okay, Amber, I'm going to put you on the spot. So Calvin, age 5, would like to know, has any dolphin gotten stranded?
Hi, Calvin. Thanks for tuning in. So yes, it does happen sometimes that for whatever reason, a dolphin will be stranded within the bay. It's not a terribly common occurrence, but it can happen. And we have stranding networks and things to respond to them as soon as we see them in distress and hopefully save them or figure out what happened to them that caused them to end up that way.
So how do you account for the very big difference in size between 300 to 1,400 pounds, 6 to 12 feet? Is it age, or can an adult bottlenose dolphin be full grown and weigh 300 pounds? I've learned so much from these questions. So these are great.
These are really great questions. Thank you all so much. So the bottlenose dolphin is found all over the world. So the variation in size is largely different, attributed to different populations in different areas. In some areas, the bottlenose dolphins are on the smaller side, and in some areas, they are on the much larger side. Here in the Bay, they're somewhere in the middle, and there's also some variation in sex. So male and female will be slightly different sizes as well, but it's largely linked to where they're from.
Okay. Any thoughts on the dolphin's impact on the bay fishery overall?
Yeah, so we know that some watermen, some fishermen are concerned that the dolphins will affect the fish and other prey species in the bay. We don't think that there will be a significant impact by any means. We know that our amazing fisherman down at the mouth of the Potomac River, he sees a lot more dolphins around that area, and that is presumably because they are in the area foraging. They're in that area because there are lots of fish, which they love, and so just like he's in the area to catch fish, the dolphins are as well. So yes, they are there to feed and they are going to eat some fish, but we do not think that it will have an impact on the fisheries in general. And we don't anticipate that there will be any changes to fishery protocol as a result of dolphins in the area.
So how do you address that there could be sightings of the same dolphins in the same area reported by more than one party in your Dolphin Watch app?
Yeah, that is a really great question. So that was something we kind of had to think through when we started analyzing the data. The more people that report, the better. So we always encourage you, even if you see other people reporting it, go ahead and report that sighting as well. But we have a protocol where we remove duplicate sightings. So if we have a bunch of people that are reporting dolphins in the same time and in the same area, we've calculated the maximum swim speed of the dolphins. And if we think that those are the same group, we'll remove that duplicate sighting so that we're just analyzing their presence just one time.
Gotcha. How often do dolphins have to surface for air?
It's a good question. I'm not sure exactly. I know that they can hold their breath for more than 10 minutes, but I'm not exactly sure how long, if they can hold it up to an hour or something like that. I think it's about every 10 to 15 minutes. And often when you see them, they're surfacing much more frequently. They're kind of staying near the surface there. So that's really only if they're diving down for food will they stay under for 10 to 15 minutes or so.
Elisa asked, what are the demographics of a typical pod? So is it a mother and a mate and a calf? Is the pod always related?
So definitely not necessarily. Dolphins have what we call a fission fusion society. So that means that they come together and break apart very frequently. So if you see a calf, the mother will very, very likely be in that pod nearby. Sometimes the females will stick together and the males will create their own little pod. It really totally can vary. It depends on the time of year and where you're seeing them, and if you see any calves in the area, it's probably mostly females in that group.
Gotcha. So Brian Lewandowski asks, does any of your research help determine the bay's dead zones? And I guess he's thinking that if there's a correlation between lack of fish and the dead zone, is that being used at all by the bay program, for instance?
Yeah, a good question. That's definitely a big concern in the bay, obviously. We haven't looked at that specifically. We looked at the dissolved oxygen concentration in relation to dolphin presence, but we didn't see that it was a big factor in determining where they were or how many were there. So we haven't seen a relation, but obviously that's a concern for us if it's affecting dolphin prey.
All right, so I've got that we're going over. So why don't we do this? Those of you who've got to drop off, I'm so sorry. Amber, if you've got maybe 5 more minutes, it looks like we've got about 10 more questions. If you want to go through
absolutely.
these. Okay.
I'm happy to stay on it, and thank you all so much for coming. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, concerns, want to help with anything. Yeah, we'd love to take your questions and hear from you.
Yeah, so if you've got to jump off right now, we certainly understand. Thank you so much for joining us. I will send the link to the entire webinar out later, well, first of next week, and I'll include Amber's contact information as well as Dr. Janet Mann's contact information, and as well as the Dolphin Watch link, so you guys could go to that. So we'll continue to go in and finish some of these questions. What are predators of dolphins?
Good question. Primarily sharks. They are mostly apex predators, which means they are at the top of the food chain. We've known that they've have on occasion bullied some sharks once they've been confronted. So it doesn't always work, but yeah, pretty much the only predator that they really have are sharks, and the only other threat to them is humans.
Okay, do we have any estimate for the number of dolphins that visit the bay?
An excellent question. We don't have a good estimation as of yet, but we think we're pretty sure that it's well over 1,000 each summer. So we're still working on understanding exactly how many and how many are repeat visitors, or are they just staying in the bay, and how many are coming back each year versus new visitors.
Okay, Dr. Campbell asked, he's joining us from India, by the way, is there any dolphin migration reported during breeding season at the same location or place?
Good question. So we don't fully understand the breeding season for these dolphins in this area as of yet. So we don't really know. It's a good question.
Okay, I think that's all the ones in the Q&A. I'll go to the chat real quick. Looks like most of those are just thanking you for an excellent presentation. I'm just checking to see if there are any others that are. There's one who asked, where do they go when they leave the bay? I guess they just head out of the ocean, right?
Yep, that's correct. So they'll either head north to, like I said, off Maryland and New Jersey, up by the New York Bight, or they'll head down south to Georgia and North Carolina. So those are the two major populations that we think are coming into the area.
Okay. And then this question was both in the chat and the Q&A. Can you spoof a signature that other dolphins recognize?
Yeah, it's a great question. So yes, we can. There is some great research going on down, I think, off Florida, and they are working on um, uh, working with specific dolphins there. They have a nice little resident population, so they can work with them continuously. And they are giving names to objects, and they have learned the names of the dolphins there. And so they're able to communicate with the dolphins there and name objects and dolphins, ask them to come to them, to give an object to another dolphin, things like that. So yes, definitely. We're not very good at it yet, but we're starting to understand that we can actually communicate them with them through that.
All right. Well, thank you, Amber. Thank you for sticking around and answering these. Thank you, everybody. I apologize for the, it sounds like the blower in the background, so sorry about that. But just wanted to say thank you so much, Amber, as well as everybody that stuck around for the full webinar. We really appreciate it. And have a great afternoon, everybody. I hope it's gorgeous where you are and that you get outside. And I hope everybody sees lots of dolphins this summer.
I hope so too. Thank you so much, Anne. Thanks everyone for coming. We hope to hear from you soon.
Great. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.